ranking the coaches in the Boston area. How would you say the job that Marco Sturm has been able to do with this team? Where would you what kind of grade would you give him?
Well, go all four currently coaching.
You got Mike Vrabel, who's got a team in the Super Bowl,
right,
so I think he's doing a pretty good job.
He's the guy, right?
It's really hard. I haven't thought about this with Joe Mazzulla and Alex Cora. Listen, those guys have done a pretty good job. Alex Cora led his team into a playoff berth here, and there's certainly been a lot of changes with the Red Sox. Joe Mazzulla's going through it too. They've missed some key players. They're missing a guy like Jason Tatum, and they're still a contender in the Eastern Conference. But for a guy like Marco Sturm, considering what the Bruins are currently going through, and again, we've talked about it at the beginning of the season. You choose the R word. They reposition the roster heading into the season, and they wanted to recapture some of the culture that they had before. So how are you going to be able to do it? We talked about this a lot at the start of the season. The Bruins are playing without a captain at the start of the season for the first time in almost 25 years. And so that meant the guy who's now the head coach has to assert himself a little bit more in the room and with those players. A lot of credit certainly goes to the players, but I think you can give Marco Sturm a ton of credit for what we've seen to this point. The Bruins are in a good spot at this point, as well as they've played. However, everybody around them is also playing well. I think the Bruins are currently, if I look at the standings, they are tied for third in the Atlantic Division. Now, granted, some of the other teams that they are tied with, Montreal and Buffalo, have a couple of games in hand. But you've got a team in Florida who you're going to see in about a week that is right on their heels. They're starting to get a little bit healthier. So as well as they've played, they only have the last wild card spot currently in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and when you look at the Bruins, and I say from the front office perspective, do you think they look at this team, before the trade deadline and going, we can make a legitimate run. Let's be very active in buying to this team?
That's a really good question. So if you look at what the Bruins have been able to do across the season, they've picked up quality wins against quality opponents all season long. It certainly happened here in January. I mean, you beat Montreal, you beat Vegas. Vegas came in as the Pacific Division leading winner, or they were leading the Pacific Division, but they've beaten a lot of the good teams around the National Hockey League. But how do they then move forward with what they're going to do here at the trade deadline? I think we talked about this maybe last week. I don't see the Bruins in the market for a rental, considering where they've tried to reposition the roster and looking ahead. That said, I don't see why they can't compete with any team that they would face in the Eastern Conference. If you look at some of the other teams,